Hey, Dan from livingdesignprocess.org here. I thought I'd get this little clip at we're in the early stages of a new project. We're in central Victoria, about an hour and a half northwest of Melbourne. We're on a 70-acre property, and we've been working with the new owners of this place, John and Rosie, for maybe 5 months. I've not been to the property yet, but over that period, those months, we've been working together. I've seen a lot of John and Rosie, and we've been working together to help them articulate a context for themselves, capture their joint intention, their individual and joint intentions for their lives in relationship to this place. And today we've hit the land, and I was really pleased to feel a way of structuring today that avoided a lot of the common traps when you get onto the land for the first time with some clients. And I'm here with my colleague Nath, and we're collaborating on this project along with our other colleague Adam Grubb. But anyway, it occurred to me that a great way to proceed would be for us we met at a cafe, got on the same page, checked in, talked about the plan for today, and then we agreed that when we arrived on the property, we'd get out of the vehicles and break ranks and just head off in different directions for about an hour. And each of us has got a copy of the aerial photo of the place. It was flown by a drone recently. We've got recent high quality aerial photo and contour map. And we would aim to really feel into the place, to observe and just use everything we've got to what I call dropping into the whole with our entire body mind, becoming present to this place, cultivating an attitude of humility and reverence, breathing, feeling and inviting this place to start revealing itself to us, or making the invitation and just being present to what happens. And so what we're doing is, each of us, we've got these maps, and as we walk around, we're asking ourselves, if we had to draw just one line across or within this base map that captured a high level pre-existing area or differentiation, or sometimes I call it a crinkle, a pre-existing crinkle in the landscape, a really significant way in which the landscape has differentiated itself into different areas over time. One line, so turning the whole property into two sub-areas. Where would it be? And draw it and check it, and then proceed in that fashion. So then take one of the two areas you've just differentiated, and if you had to draw a line differentiating that into two areas, where would it be? Draw it, check it, and so on. Sometimes the lines will overlap and will end up being quite messy, and I've suggested we stop at no more than 10 areas, because what I'm really keen to do is to not get distracted by the details in a way that means we miss the deep structure, the inner structure of this place, and the story of this place, and what's going on for it, what it has to tell us. Where, as we take in the tree, the hill, the blade of grass, the gum nut, the bit of eroded creek, we're not seeing it as a part in isolation. We're seeing it as a part of this whole, in where the metaphor is like a hologram, where the whole presents itself to us. That the way to understand the whole is through these parts, where the parts tell us something about the whole place. So each tree, it's got things to tell us about this whole place through time, through the year. What's it like here? What's the character of this place? And so that's what we're up to. And I'll keep you posted as things go along. It's going to be fun to come back together and share our maps, our initial maps, and our up to 10 areas, and consolidate them, and into, rather than saying who's right and who's wrong, we're all tapping into something. Let's now go and walk these together. And I like the fact that we're going to contrast what some people might call this touchy-feely stuff with a bit of high technology, and afterwards we'll fly around with a drone, and we'll fly some of the lines of differentiation that we've tuned into, and part of the reason for that is that John can take some of these high-level maps, messy early, bite-sized, you know, not intimidating maps, along with a bit of drone footage to share with Rosie, because it's really important that she's part of the process, even though she can't be here today. And she knows what's going on, and she's not overwhelmed by this kind of finished, comprehensive, hugely detailed site analysis map. By the way, one of the most, the greatest things about breaking ranks and going off in different directions is that we can't talk to each other. As soon as you start talking to each other, you know, we've all, well, Nathan and the owner John have been here before, and you know, they've got things they've noticed and ideas about possibilities, and as soon as you start talking, you know, you're up and you're in your mind, and you're more being present to things you've already come up with, rather than you know, being open to noticing new things. Anyway, that's where we're at, and maybe I'll catch a little clip or two as we go through the process and share how it all unfolds from here. All right, I better stop talking to a camera and do my job. Here's Nath. We're not supposed to be talking. How's it going, bro? Love it, love it. Okay, so here we are. This is John and Nath. John is one of the two stewards of this beautiful patch of 70 acres for the next stretch, and Nath is my colleague. And we've, well, yeah, just be great to hear a little bit about what we're doing today and how it's all going. John?
Sure. Look, it was a great privilege, I think, to walk around today and actually to slow down. I think we took an hour walking around the land, and were invited by Dan and Nathan to kind of really listen to the land and look at it, you know, and I think that helped me see different pockets in the land in some really different ways. There were some sacred spots that we found, some places of solitude, some places where we could see agriculture had its impact, both good and bad, and then right at the moment we're standing underneath a river red gum. I don't know how old it is.
Try and get that in shot, Dan.
Maybe it's a couple of 100 years old or something, but it's old and beautiful, and that's naturally where we found ourselves after the walk.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, so it was a great exercise. Dan had us basically sort of intuit various feelings and zonal areas of the land. So just walk around and take in the land and not try and sort of posit theories over it, but just what was it tell? Was it cool? Was it steep? Was it shallow? Was it fast? Was it slow? And really just try and have the land reveal itself without too much superimposition, which was a really fantastic exercise. And I feel like, yeah, we have, you know, we have a stronger feeling of where we are before we actually get too drilled into specifics and what we want out of it. We're seeing what it is, and what it can be can come later. And we're also sort of trying to learn where it's been, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's been great.
Could you, I particularly loved, you talked about the energy of fast-paced in that corner, just as an example of
well,
what
yeah,
came
I mean,
up
it
for
was
you?
a really different experience for me, because usually I'm dealing with maps and species types, you know, Eucalyptus cameldulensis, and, you know, it's all naming and quantifying. But you know, as I was going through this exercise, I sort of opened up to this newer process, and I got into one corner of the land. It just so happens that it is one of the higher points, but it's definitely the highest point that the water enters the landscape, but I wasn't even thinking that. I just got there and I saw rabbits fast, stream fast, saplings fast, weeds fast. It's just everything about the brevity of where I was standing, just it became really obvious after coming off these more undulating, dry, hard-packed, exposed sites, being there for a while. It felt strongly like there was a lot of energy moving there. And then we saw an old house site, we saw a bridge, we saw a lot of activity. Everything just seemed to indicate it was an energetic spot, and that was quite powerful, actually.
Yeah, and that resonated for all of us.
And actually contextualised a few other spots which had versions of that, but not, because it was sort of the peak, it was about as busy and as powerful and fast and as yang as you get. The other spots seemed to sort of contextualise. You could see that one was definitely slower and more. Yeah, it just had it was a good reference, a good datum. Really.
I think one of the things that really dropped for me today, because you know Dan has told me a lot about the sort of living design process and so forth, and it was kind of seemed a bit abstract in parts, but today I think part of the penny dropped that. You know, there's a time for planning, there's a time for engineering, there's a time for, you know, building contour channels on the land and roads and land and fences and planning where we're going to plot, put wheat or cattle or something. But there's a time, I think, and that time belongs particularly at the beginning, when you need to slow down. To borrow Nathan's reference, you need to be more yin than yang, and you need to listen and see. And I think that's actually a very powerful part of the process. There's a time for building things and there's a time for poetry. Now's the time for a bit of poetry.
Yeah, can I add to that?
Yeah.
There's a great little saying I like, and it basically speaks about what John's saying. There are times, and usually at the start, I would say, or probably almost always at the start, where you choose the second place to gain the first place. And you're basically choosing to take the back seat and not tell the landscape it's going to be a car park or it's going to have this road. You're not blueprinting it. You're basically going, what are you? I mean, you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to put some things in the wrong place. Hopefully not, but at least you're really immersed in what you're dealing with. Which, from a permaculture design point of view, I mean, I've been designing since I've been 18, a long time. It's a very refreshing, a very invigorating it's got that hybrid vigor. It's taking a lot of the stuff we've had, and it's not indigenous, but it's really it's being humble with the vast tasks at hand. So Dan, what are you going to do?
Well, so I'm just going to go through teasing out the high level differentiations across the landscape of it, or the main areas that jumped out at me as I cruised around. And so one significant one is something like, it's not the actual creek, but it's the creek flat. So I'm going to draw it very roughly to be something like that. So there's a flatter alluvial area before you move up into the foot slopes. Moving into that, actually, I'll draw this is the boundary, isn't it? I'll draw the boundary just to make that clear.
Actually, you know where we did this?
Yeah.
I did this one around the whole thing for myself in my mind, and I wrote, there was only one thing that came out of it: views everywhere.
Views.
There wasn't a place on the property where you didn't get some beautiful look.
Yeah, I know.
There wasn't a place where you just, I don't want to look at that.
Did you know that was something that Rosie and I got the very first time we walked around?
Amazing.
It is amazing.
So here we are. We're heading home. We've wrapped up. Talk to me, Nath. How did you feel we went today?
Well,
where we got to?
Well, straight off the bat, great business partner to be working with. Hats off to you, Dan, and excellent client, like a real listener and active, and so that was great. There was a lot of water logic as opposed to rock logic, where we were sort of bending with the reeds and actually sort of being receptive and not being deflecting, but just picking up cues from each other in the land. And it was a very harmonious, productive client consult and great meeting of the land. I felt like the land revealed some of her secrets. And I guess the three of us going off on our own with our own process before we even talked for an hour did help show that, because the three of us came up with very similar impressions about a number of sites on the block, it did show us that it's not just sort of poppycock, or it's not rubbish. That there are patterns and there are things happening in the landscape that are there. They just need to be, listened to, I guess. How did you feel, Dan? You feel good about it?
Yep. I had a lovely morning. It was really exciting to get out there and to feel that we're all really harmonising and bringing our respective strengths to the process. It was a real thrill, Nath, to hear you after we got back together, just to hear you sharing and how your native intuitive gifts really came out and helped uncover some of the depths of the place. So I loved it, and I can't wait for the next time.
I should also say that it's great. I think I'm falling more in love every day with the central Victorian landscapes. It's been over a decade of being out here or whatever, but they're so varied. We've got snow in Trentham, we've got flatlands out Newstead Way. We've got it's so varied. It's hot and dry and stony, and then it's moist and volcanic and wet, and it's just a great place. There's a lot going on, and this is just another one of those landscapes where there's interesting things.